If you don't know these 5 styling hacks, you're probably styling your bob totally wrong. If your bob has too much volume on the sides, it can make your face look full and droopy and kind of make the top feel like it's flat to your head. Or if there's too much volume in the nape, it can bring your eye down and make your profile feel frumpy as well. Now, if the line is too parallel to the floor, it can make it seem like the back is too long and it'll bring your eye down also. Now I'm going to show you 5 styling techniques that will fix all of these problems, no worries, and make any bob look 10 times more flattering on you. Oh, and by the way, this works on everyone. Oh, and real quick, I do want to say a big thank you to Lifen for sponsoring this video. Now, before we start, I want to show you these photos. This is kind of a before and an after, if you will. Now, here's the craziest part. I didn't change Deanna's haircut in these at all. All I did was just manipulate the style to show you what happens if you don't implement the techniques that I'm about to show you. Now we're gonna first start by spraying in a leave-in conditioner. This isn't really a heat protectant, but it does have a little bit of heat protecting qualities, but really it's just to add some of the nutrients. You will wanna add a heat protectant to this as well. But I'll start by just spraying this in. And I really am not worried about where I apply this. I can apply this to the entire head. In fact, it kind of needs to be on all the hair. I find this one doesn't really weigh hair down. Once I spray that in, I'm gonna comb it through just to make sure that we get good distribution on it and get any of the tangles out that might be coming in. Then you're going to spray in the heat protectant. So this is just going to help kind of control any of the heat that we do use because we will be using some. And finally, I'm going to work in a little bit of mousse. Yeah, I'm going to actually have you put this in because I want to see how you do it specifically. She should probably do it pretty well because I've shown you like 12 times.
No pressure.
No pressure.
But the key is, was I listening?
Likely not. So hold your hands out. We're going to start just by adding that much in. That is a pretty fair amount, but that's not a ridiculous amount. Okay, now work this in like you normally would work it in. Now I'm going to stop you there before you start working anywhere else because you're doing good right now. Usually what happens is people will start in the front of their hair. She knows to start in the back of her hair now. But specific to these techniques today, you're going to concentrate it up here and in the back. We have these recession lines in our head, okay? Mine you can see a little bit easier. So it's from here to that little bone in the back of your head. Everything below that in front of the ears. So this section right here, I actually don't want a lot of product in there for this, and you'll understand why pretty soon. So work that through and then kind of just barely put it through there. And we want to keep it out of the nape down here too. So that nape is this area right back here. Now that we have product in our hair, we're going to start drying our hair. So I'm going to give you this. This is the Life and Swift. If you're new to the channel, I've been using this for how long? A couple of years at least, probably a few years. I am a huge fan of the dryer. That's why I talk about it so much. To begin with, I'm just going to hand you this. We're going to have you turn it on. So there's different settings. Obviously, I'm just going to have you turn it all the way to number 2 right there. That's full setting. Okay? Now, one of the things I like about this is it's quiet. We can still talk while that's on. That's nice. Okay, so go ahead and start to dry your hair naturally how you would. Okay, stop already. This is perfect. I'm going to have you tilt your head forward because we want to get some of that lift in the roots, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of immediately doing this and starting to dry it back, which is laying those roots down, I want you to start rough drying it by going the opposite way. Like that. Correct. Now, one of the things that you can do right here as well, let me show you this, Deanna. You can hold this button right here for 2 seconds, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. See how that started to turn purple? That's going from hot to cold. So it's a hot-cold function that will help to minimize the damage and frizz on your hair. Perfect. This leads us into step number 1, which is control your part. One of the biggest things is understanding where you're going to part your hair and why that's actually really important for where you're creating volume and what's really setting these bobs apart. Yeah, this is the famous volumizer brush. You've been around, you know I love these. And I want you to just start to brush your hair from side and come forward and then go to the other side. Okay. We're going to do the same thing, but now all I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this dryer and we're going to add this to the mix. Okay. Perfect. And you see how she's pointing the air down the hair shaft, right? Now, if you don't want to use a brush, you don't absolutely have to. It does make it a little bit easier to get the tangles out, but for some people, it's just a lot more awkward. So you can do it like this as well. In which case, you use your fingers kind of as a brush to kind of get those tangles out. The thing about these dryers is they do work so fast, like they get hair dry so fast that I need you to stop now so I can show you step number 2, which is deals with the nape before it gets dry. But by not drying that in one specific direction, it means that you can be able to part it kind of wherever you want. But also, maybe you're parting it down the middle. Well, the concern with the middle part, they have a tendency to lay flat in the center and it makes the sides look very full. Allowing us to go back and forth means that we're going to get those roots kind of going every which way. And that means that it's going to have a little bit more root lift, even if you do part it down the center, which is going to help the illusion of that volume. But also it means that if you want to part it to one way or the other way, it's going to have an easier time controlling it to get it to go that direction. Now, step number 2 is to keep the nape tight. This is huge. I never hear anybody talk about this, but it is such a massive hack. All of this hair, this section down here, that's basically the nape area. So what I want you to do in the back is I want you to actually dry the nape, and I want you to make sure that you lay it really flat to your head. We'll round brush this up here, give this more volume, and that's gonna give us the illusion of lifting the eye. So it's gonna keep the eye from coming down because it's gonna keep this from looking so full. This is also the reason that I didn't wanna put a lot of product down here, because there's no reason to have a bunch of product down there for volume if we don't want a lot of volume. I'm gonna turn circles, but I'm literally just doing this. Now, the reason I'm actually having her turn those little circles is because many times people have a hair texture that want to flip out. This will actually help it to lay under and not flip out quite as much. Now, there is one little caveat to this, which is step number 3, and that is that if you look at Deanna's hair, it's pretty close to her neckline. And so if yours was a little bit longer back there, you'd be able to get a small round brush or something in there as well. And what you could do is actually the opposite of this. You actually give that a little bit of bend, and it'll make that bottom part come up a little bit. It'll stop it from resting on your traps here or your shoulders. And instead of it kind of bowing out, that little bit of bend will actually make the side angle look more dramatic. It'll make the front look like it's longer in comparison. More often than not, when bobs grow out, part of the reason they feel like they're losing their shape is because the back starts to break right here. It starts to kind of flip out. It starts to get a little bit bulky, and it starts to feel like it's dragging down and you're not getting the volume where you want the volume. That can almost get you 2, 3, maybe even a month worth of grow out in between. I'm saving you money right now, I feel like, right?
So great. You're so great.
There you go. Now, this leads us to step number 4, which is to create strength in the baseline. I really love to use flat irons for this, but I also want to show you how to use a round brush too, because that can definitely be done. And if you don't like using irons in your hair, I want you to kind of see both ways. So you're going to add this modifier. This is just going to be able to give us more control over where we direct this airflow. We're going to take all of this hair up here, and we're gonna comb this out of the way. So all we're dealing with is the hair on the sides. Remember, this is the hair that I said, don't put a lot of product in that right now because we don't want a lot of volume. I'm gonna have you just take this one section. This is just the stuff from the ear forward. And I'm just gonna raise this up just a little bit more. There we go. Now go down. Perfect. Down. Perfect. Down. Okay, and then let it go out of this one all the way through it. All the way, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. Perfect. Yeah. Now, do you see how strong that line looks? Mm-hmm. And you see how there's very little bend that's coming in here. Okay, that means you're still getting more than enough bend to this, but if we do this all the way around, we're not gonna get too much volume out of it. This side is still a little bit damp, so I'm gonna just dry this real quick. Done. This thing is so quick. So now on this side, I'm gonna use a flat iron, and I'm just gonna do this, and I'm just gonna do it very slight. That's it, okay? Now you can see how that has also made that a very strong liner. If you're really concerned, round brushes work really well. And if you're gonna use a flat iron, that's the way you approach it. So now we're moving into step number 5. Okay, and step number 5 is lift the temples. We need to make sure that we get some lift specifically in this area right here. We'll take the round brush. I'm gonna take a section. And what I'm gonna do on this is, before I took this straight down from the head. I didn't lift them out, and I didn't lift it up. Here, because we want to encourage this root lift we just created, I'm going to lift it up. Then I'm going to hit this button right here, and it's going to turn blue. It's the cold shot, and I'm going to cool it down while it's still in the round brush like this, okay? This is going to help lock in some of that bend. So now when I take it out, there's a little bit more bend than down here. Mm-hmm. Now you can see the difference between before and now. I know one of the comments that I'm going to get from somebody is, show me on somebody with thin fine hair, or show me on somebody with thick hair. So I said at the beginning, this will work on anybody. It doesn't matter what texture, how much hair you have. The last thing was, well, what happens if you have wavy hair? In those cases, all you would do is at the very bottom, when you get to step number 4, where you're trying to create less bend on the sides, you just do the exact same thing. You create less bend or less wave with your flat iron or whatever tool you're using. Then in the top, step number 5, we want to create a little bit more volume. You do a little bit more wave, and there you go. Now, again, I do want to say a big thank you to Lifen for sponsoring this video. I sincerely use that blow dryer all the time. I know a lot of you have actually already purchased it. I've heard you talk about how much you love it as well. But if you're curious, there is a link in the description where you can learn more. And Prime Day 2024, you can save up to 30%. So make sure you check that out. Now, I'll see you over here.